I thought I was doing everything right for most of my life, and I'm 92 now, so that's a long life to look back on. I believed I was eating sensibly. Nothing fancy, nothing extreme, just the kind of food my mother made, the kind of food my neighbors ate, the kind of food that filled the kitchen with a warm smell on a cold morning. White bread toasted golden in the pan, sweet rolls with my afternoon tea, sunflower oil in everything because that's what you buy at the store, that's what everyone uses. That's what's been sitting in the cabinet for as long as I can remember. Cheap bologna sliced thin on a sandwich, a little sausage with eggs on Sunday. I wasn't eating junk food. I wasn't eating fast food every day. I wasn't doing anything that looked wrong from the outside. And that, I think, is exactly why it took me so long to understand what was happening inside my body. I want to tell you about what I threw away, and I want to tell you why. Not to lecture you, Lord knows I've had enough lectures in 92 years to last several lifetimes, but because I genuinely wish someone had sat down with me 30 years ago and said these words plainly, without all the noise and the advertising and the confusion. I had to figure most of this out the hard way, and the hard way at my age means your body sends you the bill. So let me start with the bread. I grew up believing white bread was the good bread, the soft bread, the clean bread. Dark bread was what you ate when you couldn't afford better, or so the thinking went back then. White bread meant the flour was pure, refined, processed into something smooth and light. I loved it. I still feel a little nostalgic when I smell it, I'll be honest with you. There's a memory in that smell. School lunches, my mother's kitchen, Sunday mornings. But nostalgia and nutrition are two very different things, and I had them confused for decades. Here's what I eventually came to understand. When wheat is refined into white flour, they strip away the bran and the germ, the parts that actually do something useful for your body. What's left is mostly starch. And starch, especially the refined kind, behaves in your blood almost like sugar. It spikes your blood glucose quickly. Your insulin rushes in to handle it, and over time, over years and decades of this happening multiple times a day, that cycle wears on your blood vessels in ways you can't see and can't feel, until one day you can. I think of it like old pipes in a house. You know how in an old building, the pipes look fine from the outside, but inside, they've been collecting mineral deposits and rust and build up for 50 years? Nobody notices until the water pressure drops, or something bursts. That's what I was doing to my own vessels. Quiet damage, slow accumulation. Nothing dramatic, just a steady narrowing of what should have been open and clear. The white bread went. That was the first thing. The second thing was harder to give up, because I didn't even think of it as a food decision. I thought of it as just cooking. Sunflower oil, vegetable oil, the kind in the big plastic jug. I used it for everything. Frying, sautéing, even drizzling on salads sometimes. It was inexpensive, it was neutral in flavor, it was what you grabbed without thinking. What I didn't know, what I genuinely did not know for most of my life, is that these refined oils, the kind processed at high heat and stripped of everything natural, are loaded with something called omega-6 fatty acids, in a ratio that our bodies were never designed to handle in such large amounts. And when you heat them, especially at high temperatures, they can produce compounds that are genuinely harmful to the lining of your blood vessels. Not immediately, not in a way you'd notice on a Tuesday afternoon, but steadily, over a lifetime of cooking, those compounds contribute to inflammation. And inflammation in the vessel walls is one of the central stories of cardiovascular disease. I remember reading something once that compared it to repeatedly scraping the inside of a pipe with sandpaper. Every time, just a little. But do it enough times over enough years and the surface becomes rough. And rough surfaces catch things, and things build up, and eventually you have a problem. I'm not a doctor. I want to be clear about that. I'm a 92-year-old woman who spent a lot of years paying attention to her own body and reading everything she could get her hands on, and talking to her physician more honestly than most people probably do. But I know what I felt, and I know what changed, and I'll get to that. The refined oils went. I switched to olive oil, real olive oil, extra virgin, the kind that smells like something, for low heat cooking and for dressings. For higher heat, I use a small amount of butter, real butter, which I was terrified of for decades because of everything I'd been told, but which turns out to behave far better at high temperatures than those refined vegetable oils. The third thing I threw away was the sweet rolls. Oh, this one hurt. I had a ritual, afternoon tea, something sweet alongside it, a little moment of peace in the middle of the day. I'm not going to pretend I don't miss it, I do. But here's what sweet pastry does. The commercial kind especially, the kind made with white flour and refined sugar and often partially hydrogenated fats. It hits your system like a small explosion. Sugar spike, insulin surge, inflammation, and those partially hydrogenated fats, trans fats, even in small amounts, are genuinely some of the most damaging things you can put into your cardiovascular system. They lower your good cholesterol and raise your bad cholesterol simultaneously, which is almost an impressive feat of harm when you think about it. I've talked to people my age who say, well, at this point, what does it matter? I've lived my life. And I understand that feeling. I really do. But I also know that I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I want to be present for them. I want to think clearly. I want to walk without holding onto the wall. Those things matter to me more than a sweet roll in the afternoon, even though the sweet roll is genuinely delicious. The fourth thing, the cheap deli meats, the bologna, the processed sausages, those I gave up more easily once I understood what was in them. Sodium in amounts that would make your blood pressure rise just reading the label. Nitrates and nitrites used as preservatives, fillers, stabilizers, things with names I couldn't pronounce and wouldn't recognize as food if I saw them in their raw form. These products are engineered to taste satisfying, and they do taste satisfying, which is part of the problem. But they're not food in the way that my body knows how to use food. They're closer to a chemical approximation of food, and my vessels paid the price for years of treating them as the real thing. So there it is, what I threw out. White bread, refined oils, commercial sweet pastry, cheap processed meats. Things that looked ordinary, things that filled kitchens across this country for generations. Things that nobody warned us about because for a long time, nobody connected the dots clearly enough, or the people who could connect the dots had reasons not to say so too loudly. I wonder sometimes if you've had moments like this, where something you thought was completely normal, completely harmless, turned out to be quietly working against you. It's a strange feeling, not quite betrayal, but something in that neighborhood. Now let me tell you what came in to replace all of that. The change I felt most quickly, and I mean within days, not months, was when I started adding ground flaxseed to my mornings. Just 2 tablespoons, stirred into warm water or mixed into a small bowl of oatmeal made with whole rolled oats. Flaxseed is one of the richest plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, which are the counterbalance to all those omega-6s I've been drowning in for years. Omega-3s help reduce inflammation in the vessel walls. They help keep blood from becoming too sticky and prone to clotting. They support the flexibility of the vessel lining itself. I also started eating more foods with magnesium, and this surprised me because I hadn't thought much about magnesium before. But magnesium is involved in over 300 processes in the body, and one of its most important jobs is helping blood vessels relax. Not tighten up, not constrict, relax and open. Dark leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, a small handful of almonds, dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao content. These became regular parts of my eating, not in large amounts, just present, consistently, every day. And then there's the thing I do at night. This is the part people always ask me about, so let me be specific. Every evening, about an hour before I go to bed, I make a warm drink. It takes me less than 5 minutes, and it has become one of my favorite parts of the day. Maybe because it replaced the sweet roll ritual, and I needed something to fill that quiet space. Here is exactly what I do. I warm 1 cup of water, not boiling, just hot enough that you could hold the cup comfortably, around 140 degrees Fahrenheit if you want to be precise. Into that, I stir 1 teaspoon of raw honey, the kind that's still cloudy and thick, not the clear processed kind. Then I add the juice of half a small lemon. Then I add a small pinch, and I mean a small pinch, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon, of turmeric powder. And finally, 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed. I stir it well and I drink it slowly while I sit in the chair by the window. The honey provides a small amount of natural compounds with anti-inflammatory properties, and unlike refined sugar, it doesn't cause the same sharp spike in blood glucose when consumed in this small amount, especially before sleep. The lemon brings vitamin C, which is important for collagen synthesis, and collagen is part of what keeps vessel walls strong and elastic. The turmeric contains curcumin, which has been studied extensively for its effects on vascular inflammation. And the flaxseed, as I said, delivers those omega-3s, along with soluble fiber that helps bind to cholesterol in the digestive tract and carry it out of the body before it can be absorbed. I'm not telling you this is a miracle. I'm telling you this is what I do, and I'm telling you what happened in the first 7 days after I started doing it consistently. By day 3, I noticed I was sleeping more deeply. Not longer necessarily, but deeper. The kind of sleep where you wake up and feel like you actually rested. I hadn't realized how poor my sleep had become until it improved. By day 5, the heaviness in my legs in the morning was less. I used to wake up and feel like my legs needed 10 minutes before they were willing to cooperate. That feeling was lighter. By day 7, something I can only describe as a sense of ease in my chest. Not pain before, I want to be clear. I wasn't having chest pain, but a kind of tightness that I had normalized, that I had stopped noticing because it had been there so long. And then it was less. And I noticed its absence, the way you notice when a sound that's been running in the background finally stops. My doctor, when I told her what I had changed, did not dismiss me. She said the changes I described were consistent with what we know about reducing vascular inflammation through diet. She adjusted nothing in my medications. She just said, keep doing what you're doing and come back in 3 months. I think about my mother sometimes, and her mother, and all the women in my family who ate the way they ate because that's what they had and that's what they knew. I don't blame anyone. The food industry sold us a story about what was healthy and what was modern and what was convenient, and we believed it because why wouldn't we? The packaging was cheerful, the prices were right, and nobody was standing in the grocery store aisle saying, wait, look more carefully at what this actually is. But I'm 92. I've outlived a lot of people who are younger than me. And I think part of the reason, not all of it, genetics matters, luck matters, but part of the reason is that I eventually started paying attention. I started asking questions. I started being willing to throw things out, even things I loved, even things that felt like home. The white bread and the sweet rolls felt like home, and I had to let them go anyway. I think about the people in this country who are my age, or their children's age, or their grandchildren's age, who are still eating the way I used to eat because nobody ever sat them down and talked to them plainly. Not in a commercial, not in a 30-second news segment, but just honestly, the way one person talks to another. I think about how many of them feel that same tightness in the chest that I had normalized. How many of them wake up with heavy legs and think, well, that's just getting older? How many of them are eating foods that look ordinary and harmless and are slowly, quietly doing damage that doesn't announce itself until it's already significant? I don't know if any of this will resonate with you. I don't know what's in your kitchen right now, what's in your cabinet, what you reach for without thinking in the morning. But I know that for most of my life, I would have told you I was eating fine. I was eating the way everyone around me ate. I was eating the way I'd always eaten. And that was exactly the problem. There's a question I sit with sometimes, and I don't have a clean answer to it. When we've been eating a certain way for decades, when those foods are tied to memory, to comfort, to the smell of someone's kitchen who we loved, is it worth changing? Is the gain worth the loss of something that felt like home? I've come down on one side of that question for myself, but I'm not sure it's the same answer for everyone, and I find myself genuinely curious what you would say. What I can tell you is what I know from the inside of my own body. At 92, after a lifetime of paying the wrong kind of attention, and then finally, maybe later than I should have, paying the right kind. The pipes can be cleaned. Not perfectly, not completely, not overnight, but they can be helped. And it starts, I think, with being honest about what we've been putting through them. That warm drink is waiting for me tonight. It's a small thing, but small things, done every evening for years, add up to something. I've learned that much at least.